This is HelloMasters.
Oh, welcome to another HelloMasters at Home. And today we're going down under. We're meeting with Jeremy Brook, who is the CMO of Deliveroo in Australia. Previously, he was living in Amsterdam for, I think, over 10 years, Jeremy?
Correct.
With Heineken and Google. He recently moved back to his home country. So I'm very glad that you're here, Jeremy. How are things in Melbourne or in Australia in general?
So good morning. It is 6:15 in the evening as we speak. So I'm watching the sunset. We are currently encouraged to stay at home, but we are not technically in lockdown. So things are good. Things are busy. And I've been practicing with the rest of my company on working from home for 2 weeks already. So we're learning a lot about what being a digital nomad at home looks like.
Yeah. So how's it going for your team? Are you kind of used to the new way of working, a new reality?
The first thing I would say is that for a company like Deliveroo, and especially for a team that live right on the edge of the world, working from home is actually relatively easy in terms of getting the work done. So we deploy a whole bunch of tools from Slack to Workplace, to the whole Google suite of apps. So, you know, the day-to-day of our work is pretty much the same. Where I think it gets challenging and where it's difficult is that some of our team are naturally extrovert. You know, we're all marketers, so we're naturally quite bubbly, talkative people. And having to do all of that, where you used to do that face-to-face and do all that via Hangout or a Skype or whatever we're using, it is definitely challenging for different individuals. So I find that my energy level, for example, I need to manage a different way. I can't get that immediacy of grabbing a coffee with someone down in the center of Melbourne and just hanging out for 20 minutes.
Yeah. And what's it like where you live? Like, is there a lot of change in the way people are behaving?
Yeah, so Melbourne, well, first of all, what's interesting is that Australia has a lot of different states. It's a very big country. So actually each of the state governments are actually handling slightly different policies. So what happens here in Melbourne might be slightly different than what's happening in Sydney. An example of that is that currently at Melbourne, schools are most certainly off, and they brought school vacation, school holidays forward, whereas in other states, that's not the case. So there is a little bit of a difference city by city. But currently in Melbourne, we are practicing social distancing, and we're encouraged to spend as much time at home and avoid any unessential travel. In my particular neighborhood, that means that there are a few more people around during the day. So more parents are at home. The kids have been put on early school vacation, so they're at home with their parents. And the city centre, our CBD, as we call it, is pretty empty. We see that the businesses that would normally be trading there have all basically sent everybody home, bar the most essential of services. So big shift there, but I walk the dog every morning at the same time, and it still feels pretty much the same, except people stand a little bit further apart and don't dwell so long.
Okay. So how would you describe your current Zen level?
It varies, actually. I think at the moment I'm doing okay. I had a mixed day. Yesterday I had a great day, but the day before I had an average day. So I think every day it's almost a little bit like picking a straw out of the hat, and you get a little bit of a different feeling. I'm being careful to only check in on news and current affairs in little slots during the day, and not browsing or binging on the news, because the news cycle is so real that you could easily spend all day trying to get updates.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, mental health, I think, is a big issue as well in this time. And kind of pacing yourself and understanding where you divide your attention is really important.
Yeah,
so you work with Deliveroo, which obviously is a player in many countries around the world. So do you have a lot of contact with your peers in other countries?
Excitingly, actually, more so now than ever. So one brilliant way to bring that to life is that what's really interesting about food delivery at the moment is how different governments either allow stop or even in some cases recommend food delivery services.
Mm-hmm.
So different governments, and in our case, even different cities, are legislating in slightly different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find is that the best way for us to learn and anticipate what to do next is by connecting with all our peers. So I think I've been more in touch with our other CMOs around the world than ever before. We operate in very interesting cities when it comes to COVID-19. Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei, Kuwait and Dubai, and then across Italy, Spain, France, the Netherlands, of course, and the United Kingdom and Ireland. So, these are countries each with their own flavor of restrictions and their own flavor of opportunities. And each of us is navigating both. So, here in Australia at the moment, where we have all the big fast food chains or quick serve restaurants currently open and trading. But some of my colleagues in Europe have seen those restaurants close. Like in the UK, as of today, many of them are actually shut.
Yeah.
So getting on a call or a Slack or a hangout with some of those people to say, hey, what happened? What would you have done differently a week ago if that had happened? Learning from that has actually been weirdly actually really exciting.
Yeah. And is there anything, you mentioned some, Asian cities like Taipei and Hong Kong who got exposed a lot earlier to the consequences of this virus. Is there anything, they kind of share or you can learn or is useful for the other countries that are in the midst of everything today?
Yeah, a couple of things. Firstly, if ever I feel a little bit stressed or down or worried, connecting with colleagues in Singapore or Hong Kong makes me feel very relaxed very quickly, because there are people that have had to live through what is effectively the future for many other countries, right? So I've spoken to a couple of peers, and they reassure me with a smile on their face that everything will be okay, because they're a little bit in kind of talking to you from the future, if you think of it like that. The second thing that I've learned is that thinking that this will be all over very, very quickly is also not the case. Australia, at the moment, we talk about two crises. We talk about the health crisis and we talk about the economic crisis. And I think it's really useful to talk to those people as well about the fact that business, society, and the economics of countries is changing as a result of this, whether or not people like it or not. So there's definitely some good and some challenge.
Yeah, it feels that your company is very much at the nexus of, kind of a lot of market dynamics that is impacting you at the same time, because obviously people can't go to restaurants, so you see a lot of restaurants signing up to, delivery services. At the same time, through legislation and rapidly evolving, things around the virus, you're not allowed to do a lot of different things. So it must be extremely, in that regard, always on, and it tends to change every day almost, right?
Yeah, and it does really change every day. To assume that business is booming would be naive, because you've hit on some of the major factors that are changing the dynamics. People changing where they are when they eat, who they're with, whether or not their government encourages them to eat that way, whether or not it's even legally possible. These are all things that we navigate really every day. My team start every day with a standing meeting now. That meeting has some lighthearted bits, but part of it is to actually catch up on what have we learned from the news cycle overnight from the rest of the world, first from the rest of Asia, and then of course Europe. And what are we going to take forward for the day? And,
so did you kind of stop with all the campaigns that you planned out prior to that, and it's like kind of very much into the whim of the day-to-day? Did you run your marketing team?
So what I think definitely has changed is that some of our longer term plans we have either stopped or paused. Now, of course, there's some very specific things that aren't happening. For example, we had a really interesting initiative, a little test around a certain type of flyering that we wanted to do in some neighborhoods. Now, of course, that's not happening right now. It should be happening right now, but first of all, people aren't going to the train stations that we would have flied at, and most certainly they don't want to be handed something from a stranger. So
Yeah.
obviously those things aren't happening.
Yeah.
But we're absolutely pivoting in much more real time what we're doing. And a great example of that is that we had this plan to promote some of our hero restaurants that are not only valuable to us, but are really iconic for customers because they're a really strong independent restaurant. They're not a big chain.
Yeah.
But they're really well known in their neighborhood. And food delivery, although we're in a global company, it's a very local business. You always order from kind of businesses within, 2 kilometers from you. So we'd highlighted a whole bunch of those restaurants to partner with anyway. And we wanted to do this really creative campaign with them around marketing their brands in partnership with Deliveroo. And that activity is still happening, but it's been pivoted. If you were to search for the hashtag here to deliver, you'll see examples from Australia and the UK where we're running a different version of that campaign where we're asking restaurants to hold up a little sign with a little message about their brand or something that they believe in, and heroing them because while they're closed for dine-in customers, they're still here through delivery, and we're still using the same overall goal, which is to promote them, but now with a little bit more impetus on, they're in business and they're still operating because delivery is an option for them.
Yeah. Interesting. What do you kind of, and how do you as a CMO kind of lead your team? Like, how do you make sure also there continues to be a positive vibe? Kind of that you still have those downtime moments that you have when you are in office and you can take the team out for a drink or dinner or things like that. Like, how do you kind of keep the culture working well?
Yeah, that's a good one. A little bit of experimentation, but what seems to be working at the moment is that it's the end of my day, and I just counted before we started this the number of meetings I had today, and I've technically had 16 meetings already today. But actually, if I go back and look at them, some of them aren't really meetings. They're actually just scheduled relaxed time. So a team member of mine, Nina, and I just had a coffee this morning virtually. That was my 10:30 meeting. And we just chatted for 25 minutes. There was zero agenda. I actually didn't have a coffee at the start of the meeting, but then I wanted a coffee. So I went and grabbed the cup and I said, do you mind if I go do that in the middle of this chat? Exactly like we would have probably done if we went to the coffee machine in the office.
Yeah.
But I just did it at home, and we talked about her and her personal life and her parents and what she wanted to get done over the weekend. And she just got some new bed sheets, like very casual stuff.
Yeah.
So scheduling that in and making an effort to rotate that around people, you just need to be a little bit more organized.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do in our team that I like to think it's working. I was chatting to one of my personal coaches yesterday, and I said to her I was quite proud of it, but I don't, that's for everyone else to decide if they think it's a good thing for them. But in our daily standing meeting, there are 2 fun things that we do. They're entirely optional, by the way, but we have an outfit of the day option, so you can choose to wear something funny or weird. People who know me will recognize this, but I once wore this big hat in a meeting, right? Little, not suitable for Australian weather, but kind of stuff like that. So we all join the call and we all discover what someone's picked out of their wardrobe. And that breaks any tension or seriousness straight away.
Yeah.
And then we often ask people, apart from the serious things that you have in a regular daily standing, we ask people, what's the one thing you're looking forward to today?
Yeah. That's a good one.
Then you really do connect with people. And I mean, it's everything from having a new puppy to walking outside with their children to doing a puzzle to meeting someone virtually, or if they're allowed to in person. There's just so much richness to learning about people like that. And we make it standard and everyone goes through it, and we still get through the business stuff. But if those 2 things are useful for anyone listening to this, then
I like the last one a lot.
Yeah,
no, I like the last one. We're having our team meeting after this recording, so I'll definitely going to use your tip there and let you know how it goes. Yeah, great. So last question, Jeremy, how are you kind of coping, personally? Like, are you going, how do you kind of keep your Zen level? How do you relax? How do you kind of work in the now, but also kind of plan for the immediate future? Like, how are you kind of keeping your mental health going?
So for the most part, I'm pretty okay. I'm doing pretty well. But I also think, I especially encourage it amongst my team and the people around me, that it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And so when people ask you, there's no need for this false business, professional look that says, okay, I have to be amazing at all times. So I was on a call last week, and there were three of us, basically me and some of my senior peers, and an important decision had to be made. And we were ideally trying to make it on a Friday before the start of the week. And we kind of got halfway through the chat, and someone said, look, I think it's okay for us to all say we're pretty tired and it's been a pretty long week. Do we really need to make this decision now? Mm-hmm. And I think that in a normal environment, we probably wouldn't have been that honest and that open.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really humble way of one person suggesting that us trying to hold it together to try and make a very difficult business decision wasn't the right thing to do for us as people. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing is every day I really line up on the things that I can influence and control, and the tone that I can set for the beginning of the day. And then I also try and not hide the fact that I might have a bad day. So I run that daily standing with a lot of energy, and I look forward to it. Actually, I think the whole team really look forward to it. It's kind of a great way to start the day. Yeah. Something I think we should continue, actually, in a weird way, somehow, when this is all evolved. Mm-hmm. But I also think that it's okay to say, last night I had a rough night, or I didn't get sleep, and I'm definitely going to struggle today, or I need to connect in a different way.
Yeah. It's almost like these times kind of forces us to, kind of, like you were saying, kind of release the professional jacket and kind of, show who you are as a human, because these are challenging times. And that's definitely something that is emerging very rapidly, but it's not common business conduct. So it's an interesting development.
Yeah. And, I sit in the least pretty part of my house right now, but, I probably should think about sitting in a room a bit like yours sometimes and giving people a beautiful insight into the world you live in. I'm doing this little cast from the exact spot I would have been working from for most of today, but you do get an insight into people's lives. So if you've got the camera on and you're going to engage with them and connect with them, then you need to think about that humility. And I find it funny, actually, like, so many people apologize for something that's going on in their life. I often apologize for my dogs barking in the background. Other people might have strangers walk in, or a kid running around because they're at home and not at school. And I think all of that's okay. Yeah. That's all okay. I was trying to do some new business with a company we're trying to do a co-marketing campaign with, and the dog ran in, and this amazing woman said, well, what kind of dog is it?
Yeah,
that was the nice thing to do, right?
Yeah, it's endearing.
So, exactly. So I encourage everyone just to, it is real life, so don't feel you have to pretend.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's beautiful last words, Jeremy. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat, and wishing you all the best down under. Have a relaxing evening. And,
if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be having a drink in Amsterdam together in a couple of weeks. So
yes, I know.
I hope to have it soon. We
will. Otherwise, we do a quarantine and with a virtual drink.
I'm all for that. I don't mind drinking in the morning or the evening. With you guys, it'll be okay.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We'll talk soon. Ciao, ciao.